Today from my kitchen I am bringing you traditional beef stroganoff. Now, a lot of people think it's a Hungarian dish, but no, it's actually Russian, and it's spelled with a V, not two F's at the end. Although, these days, pretty much everybody spells it with the F's. Beef stroganoff, so the history goes, was invented by a French chef who worked for the Stroganoff family in Russia. At that time, wealthy people were, well, pretty much everyone was enthralled with French cooking, and wealthy people could afford to have a French chef in their home. The Stroganoffs were wealthy. Part of the tradition is that Count Stroganoff had bad teeth and could no longer chew a proper steak. So the chef had to come up with something tender that he could chew. So this is what he invented. And that's a myth, maybe? A little fairy tale in there? We don't know. But the original recipe calls for sirloin steak. Now, steak these days is pretty expensive, so I'm going to just use beef stew. That means I'm going to have to let it simmer for a little while before we put the rest of the ingredients together. A proper beef stroganoff only takes a few minutes to make, like maybe half an hour. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is take our beef, dredge it in flour, brown it, and then we're going to set it to simmer for, well, as long as possible. Be frank, because beef stew isn't that tender. These are big chunks. Properly, it would be thin slices of steak. Right. Traditionally, you would saute your beef in just butter, and it wouldn't take very long to saute it because you are properly using a good steak. But since we are using stewing beef, and it's going to take a bit to get this done, I'm using a little bit of oil to stop the butter from browning. As soon as we get that melted, we will get the beef stew in there. I'm just going to dredge our beef in the flour, just plain all-purpose flour. And get it in our pan. We don't want to crowd the pan because we're not trying to stew it yet. We want to seal in all those juices so it does come out nice and tender. So as this browns, you're going to need to remove it from the pan to put the next batch in. So have a plate ready, and then once it's all browned, put it all back in the pan and add some beef stock and let it simmer. And I'm probably going to let it simmer for about 2 hours. Okay, now that we've got all our beef brown, I'm going to add that back in. This is where we take a departure, well, another departure from the recipe, the traditional recipe. We are going to simmer it. At this point, if you're using steak, you would remove the beef from the pan, add some butter, and saute your mushrooms and onions. We now need to simmer our beef in the stock that would go in later. So we're going to get that up to a simmer. As soon as I put the lid on, it is going to simmer a little stronger. Do that, and we'll turn it back down. And we're going to let this go for 2 hours. To continue with our beef stroganoff, we're going to saute our mushrooms and onions, and we have our pan warm here. We have a tablespoon of butter, whole onion. And I have 6 button mushrooms sliced. I'm going to saute these until soft. Once you have sauteed your beef, or if you're using stew meat or a tougher cut, simmered it for a bit, you want to put your onions and mushrooms into the pan and saute them for a little bit. We'll add our mustard. Tomato paste. And sour cream. I'm going to turn this down a bit. Everything in there. I'm going to put our beef and all the stock in there. And traditionally, it would have been served with mashed potatoes. Although, when the Russian aristocracy fled, a lot of them went to China, and they did take this recipe with them. It ended up being served with rice and egg noodles. But should be served with mashed potatoes. So we'll be back. Oh, that looks so wonderful. So this is my take on a traditional beef stroganoff. Cooked properly, it is beautiful, it is delicious, and it doesn't take that long to make. And it even works, as I did tonight, with stew meat. You just have to braise the stew meat for a bit. Thank you all for watching. This is the most delicious beef stroganoff I've ever had, even if I say so myself. I've had it in restaurants where it was too heavily peppered. Had it other places that was just like, what the hell is that? If you've had beef stroganoff and it wasn't good, I'm sorry. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, please like. I love you all, and I will be back again soon with a new recipe. Thank you.